Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining with us tonight for this meeting that we believe is going to be a really informative meeting. It's not going to be a long meeting, but we're going to talk about a subject that's on a lot of people's mind. That subject is debt, and it's easy to get into debt, but it's hard to get rid of it, to get out of it. And so it's pressing on the minds of many people, many husbands, many wives, sons, and daughters, companies, small businesses around the world is concerned about this issue called debt. But tonight we're going to talk about it from a home standpoint, a local standpoint. What can we do to get from under some of this debt? My name is Ricky Pitts, and I'll be your host for tonight. On behalf of Bessie Cooper Harris, one of our other VPs, we want to thank you for taking the time out of, I'm sure, a busy agenda to listen to a simple presentation. And it's going to be simple. And sometimes the simplicity is so simple, we can miss it. But just pay close attention tonight and take some good notes. And if you practice and go back and implement these principles, it will make all the difference for you as it has for me in the world. The subject is how money works. You see, we know how to work for the money. That's not the problem. The question is, how does the money work? And we're going to look at that tonight. There's a lot of things to look at when it comes down to how money works. It's like 9 things. We're not going to have time to deal with all 9 of those things tonight for the sake of time. We're going to really focus on one, but taking control is one, paying yourself first, paying off debt, the power of home ownership, the rule of 72, discovering that rule, buying the right kind and right amount of life insurance, deferring taxes, becoming an owner, not a loaner, and investing with professional portfolio management. But right here tonight, we're going to deal with this pay off debt. Ricky, how can I do it? I've been working now all of my life. I've heard folks say, I feel like I'm going to work just to pay the bills. It's affecting their performance on the job. Many of them get to work late because they just, oh, I hate I gotta go because I know when I get paid on Friday, the money is already gone. How can we deal with that? Well, we believe that financial education should be free. But I want you to think about the question that many folks are asking themselves. How can I save for the future when I have so much debt? Literally drowning as they feel, as they see it in debt. And many of them don't really have a lot of debt, but it's more than they've ever had at any time in their entire life, and they feel that there's no end in sight. Well, you have the power. Let's put that out there on the very front. We have the power to become financially independent, definitely financially secure. We can get out of debt. We can build savings. We can get on the path to financial independence. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a path. When I was a child, we made little paths in the woods in the country. And we had a little path through the plum bushes, path through the woods, path to the branch. And if we follow that path, we always went to that same destination. What we don't want to do is work for 20, 30, 40, 50 years and be on a wrong path and get to the destination and say, oh my goodness, I'm in the wrong location. But we can get on the right path and be sure and very sure that we can retire with some degree of dignity. But it's going to take something. It's going to take taking control. Now, control never yields itself voluntarily. Control has to be taken, and it's going to release itself with hollering and screaming and all along the way, but we have to take control, and that's really on all of us individually. Self-discipline is something we have to embrace on this journey, all of us do, toward financial independence. Now, there are 9 things that we can do to take control. I'm not going to deal with all 9 for the sake of time, but I will talk about these 3. Adjust your priorities, adjust the lifestyle, avoid the credit trap. When I was 20, in my 20s, I had certain priorities. I thought it was an absolute necessary for me to spend money on certain things, to go to the gym or to eat out. This was a necessity for me. When I got to my 30s, my priorities changed than what they were well, they didn't change a whole lot, 20 to 30, but they did change a little bit. But when I got to my 40s, the priorities changed. So what I thought was extremely important at age 20 wasn't a real big deal at age 40. When I got to the 50s, things changed again. What I thought was a big deal in the 30s wasn't a big deal in the 50s. Now that I'm in the 60s, things are totally different. What I thought was a priority in the 20s and 30s and 40s and a priority in the 60s. The 60s, you're looking for the golden years to enjoy, but it takes a plan, it takes a strategy, it takes a system, it takes accountability, it takes consistency, and we all can get it done. Let's talk about that. Now, lifestyle, that's where it begins. And depending on how you were raised and where you come from, or they say what side of the track you were from or came from, the lifestyle might have to be adjusted a little bit. I came from a real poor background, so my lifestyle, as we started doing a little bit better and than we were as a child, it wasn't hard for me to make the adjustment. Somebody else, on the other hand, may be totally different, but that lifestyle, it's important to make that adjustment. Then also to avoid the credit trap. You go to the store, go to, let's say, Dillard's or Parisians or Belts, and we go into the store and they say, well, you get a card today. If you get this card today, we're going to give you a 20% discount. And just open up this credit card. And we keep doing that, then it affects the credit score in a real big way because of all these credit inquiries. So we have to make that change as well. And then also goal setting. I'm not going to focus on all five of these for the sake of time, but I want to talk about this one right here, number 2. Get personal. Write down why you're motivated to achieve it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important to know the why. Why do I want to be out of debt? Why do I want to have at least whatever that number is left over every month? $100, $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000, $1,500. Why do I want to get it done? Why do I want to retire with some degree of dignity? Why do I want to make sure I'm not living, as they say, hand to mouth? Why? What motivates me? What moves me? What makes me wake up at night? What makes me work fast all during the day and walk fast all during the day? Why do I want to get it done? What motivates me to achieve the goal? That's going to be important. And once we identify the why, the how will fall in line. So that's number 1. Why do you want to get it done? Let's talk about, again, pay off debt. And let's feel the victory of how it's going to feel to be on the top of the hill. And we've taken the hill. We've paid off the debt. We've eliminated all the credit cards. We've paid off the cars. We've paid off the house. We've paid off the student loan. We've paid off everything that's a debt obligation. How is that going to feel? We got to feel the feeling before we get there. Pay off the debt. Now, there's some bad news about compounding. And you've heard it say, and I've heard it say, that compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe when it's working on our side, on our behalf. But on the other side, it could be bad if it's working against us. Let's look at a case where a person had a credit card and they put $3,000 on the card and nothing else. Interest rate is 20%. Going to take 10 and a half years to pay that thing off, paying the minimum payment. Here's how it looks. Purchase of $3,000 at one time, let's call it a riding mower. That riding mower was on sale for $3,000. They paid $2,350 in interest. That total cost is $5,350. I hope that's a really good riding mower. You see, interest can almost be like an enemy. And if we don't have a game plan to eliminate it, it just lasts and lasts and lasts and lasts and lingers, and the debt becomes a utility. And at some point, we want to get out of this consumer debt. And I'm not saying debt is bad, depending on the kind of debt. Corporations get a lot of debt. I'm talking about in the home, consumer debt, right where we live. That's important to make sure that's gone at some point. Let's talk about the different kinds of debt. There is revolving debt and there's fixed debt. They both have a high rate, but it's a big difference in the two. Revolving debt, $17,000, interest rate 18%, making $595 per month. Now, revolving debt, you know how that works. It's a percentage of the balance. So this month, if the balance goes down a little bit, it's 3.54% of the balance. And so the payment tends to drop. And it makes a person feel good because they say, you know what, I'm paying a lot less. But they don't tend to look at that balance is not moving. It's like 40 years in the wilderness for a 3-day journey, so to speak. So this is how it looks. Making that payment every single month, revolving debt, going to take it 17 years and 2 months to pay off $17,000. They're going to pay $12,500 in interest alone. With a fixed payment, which means that that $595 is going to stay the same balance, same interest rate, paid it off in 3 years and 2 months, 5,370 versus 12,500. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a really, really big difference. And so it's not necessarily that the interest rate amount, the interest rate itself, the percentage rate, it is the process of eliminating that debt. So you're systematically, strategically, surgically sticking to a game plan to pay that debt off within a reasonable period of time and making that payment every month. Don't let anything stop us from making that payment every single month. Then there's something called debt stacking. Let's look at how this debt stacking works. Now, we've heard about this all of our lives. So here you got a case here. I'm going to use my pen real quick. They got retail card is $220 a month. At some point, that 220 is going to be paid out. They're going to take this 220 here and add it to that other credit card that's 353 and now send them 573. At some point, that 573 is going to be paid out. They're going to take that 573, add it to the car payment, which is 551, and now send them this whole 1124 here. At some point, that 1124 is paid out, and that card is gone, and the car is gone. They're going to take that 1124 and add it to this other credit card, this 303, and now send them the entire 1124, as I mentioned earlier. And now they got 1427 freed up. 1427, we're going to take this 1427 here, add it to the 1293, which is the mortgage payment over here, and send them the entire 2720. Now, if they do the same thing for that they've been doing for the whole period of time, take that mortgage payment, take the total of all the debts that's been eliminated, all of them, and take that 1427, add it to the mortgage, what difference would it make? Let's take a look at that. If they don't do it, they'll be in debt for 24 years. They're going to pay $212,000 in interest alone. And keep in mind, they're paying out the same $2720 per month. If they do it, they're going to be out of debt in 9 years. They're going to avoid $130,000 in interest. So they're paying 82 versus paying 212, and they're paying the same 2720 per month, 15 years sooner. You see, ladies and gentlemen, it just takes a game plan. This is not mystical. This is not magical. This is mathematical. And if we stick with a game plan and maybe have a little bit of accountability, we can get it done. This is not impossible. There are folks that I've talked to over the years, and they feel that it's impossible to ever, in my lifetime or the next generation lifetime, get out of this debt. Well, that's not the case. It can be done, and it's not difficult if we decide this is what I want to do. If we decide this is a goal that I've set, and I have my reasons why I want to get this done, it's not hard to get it done. Now, it's important to avoid these common credit mistakes. It's 5 of them. But let's just focus on one. Not being aware of your total debt. We want to encourage everyone that's in the room tonight, if you've not already done this, just take the time and write down all the debt on a piece of paper. It ain't got to be anything fancy. Just be just a regular piece of paper. Just write it all down. What is my mortgage? What is the balance? What is my car payment balance? What is the balance? What is the other car? What's the truck? What's the balance? What is the Visa card's balance? MasterCard and Sears, what's the balance? What's the student loan balance? What's the payday loan balance? I was talking to a good friend of mine that's an attorney in one of the cities, in Montgomery, Alabama. He helped people do certain things and in terms of get out of debt and this type of thing. But he showed me something the other day that I was blown away. He sent it to me. He texted to me. Had one person that had borrowed some money, and they just needed to borrow some money, and then want to have a decent payment. I got a good payment. I'll pay it back at some point. Interest rate was 299%. I didn't say 29.99. 299, if I recall correctly, it's 200, maybe 300, but 299% interest rate. They will be as old as Methuselah trying to pay that thing off. And this is the trick that many dealerships, car dealerships, if you want to get a car, just come here and you're going to ride today. Son, daughter, you are going to ride today. But they don't talk about the interest rate being what it is. And it's hurting a lot of people. So it's important to take the time to identify. We can't fix a problem if we don't identify it. And it's important to do a little statistical process control and put it all on paper. Mortgage, cars, credit cards, student loans, payday loans, kin folks, write them all down. That's important. The next important thing is five tips to raise the credit score. Number one, know the score. Number two, don't miss a payment. If a payment has been, uh, try hard not to be late because it affects the FICO score in a big time way, and definitely don't miss the payment. The third thing that's important is catch up on overdue accounts. The fourth thing is keep a low balance on the credit cards. And the fifth thing is don't apply for a whole lot of new credit because it makes a person somehow feels good. They feel good when they're applying for new credit and it's approved like right on the spot. And they say, "Oh, you got good credit. We're going to increase your limit from 2,500 to 5,000. You're going to give me 5,000. We're going to give you 5,000." And then that person says, "I'm never going to pay. I'm never going to get that limit up to 5,000." Well, around June, here come a birthday. That's 1,000. And then here comes July and August. That's a vacation. Well, that's 3,000. Well, here come jingle bell, jingle all the way. That's December. That's Christmas. That's another 1,000. You turn around, that thing is maxed out. So it's kind of tricky. The credit industry is like a genius, and they know how to get the people's money in Middle America. So we're saying we have to watch out for that. Then we're going to talk about the power of home ownership. Let's take a look at this. We're going to keep it real simple. They had a home that cost $250,000. That's what they wanted to get. They put 20% down, so the balance is approximately $200,000. But now over time, because this is an appreciating asset, over time, growing at about 4.5% a year over 30 years, that's $925,000. That's not a real bad move to buy a home. As a matter of fact, that's a real wise move to buy a home. Another important thing I want you to take a look at is paying it off. Now, if they just make the payment on time every month, they're going to pay $257,000 in interest. However, if they pay, instead of paying it one time per month, just do it bi-weekly. So if it's 1,000 a month, if that's the regular payment, just pay 500 every 14 days. And they'll bi-monthly rather, bi-weekly. That's going to save them $52,000. So how does that look? If they pay biweekly and also add $50 to it, that's going to save them $82,000. So rather than going 30 years here, they're going to pay it off 5 years early just by doing a biweekly 500 every 2 weeks as opposed to 1,000 every month. If they add $50 to that biweekly payment, they're going to pay that house off 8.5 years early. Because at the end of the year, you end up paying an extra payment. But you know, when you're doing it that way, we don't miss it. Okay, I'm just 1,000 a month. I'm just gonna pay 500 this 2 weeks and 500 the next 2 weeks, and keep doing that, and don't miss it, and knock off a lot of years off that mortgage over time. That's a simple concept, but it makes a big difference. Now let's talk about the power of home ownership. It's building equity, building wealth. Before a young couple, middle-aged couple, older couple can turn around, they can have 25, 35, 45, 65, 75, 125, 300,000, 200,000 of equity in that home. That's like money in the bank. That goes right to the bottom line. That goes right to the net worth. That's a pretty big deal. Number two is tax advantage. That's a huge big deal, and the reason for having a home is a tax advantage. We don't have a whole lot of those now, so anything you could get as a W-2 person or 1099 person in the workforce out there. It's to our advantage. And then the third thing is it's your home, your way. If you decide you want to have some dogs and cats in the home, it's your home. You decide you want to add something to it, it's your home. You want to change the floors in the house, it's your home. You want to paint the walls pink, it's your home. It's a degree of pride of ownership because the home belongs to you. Then it's an emotional benefit. How good does it's a celebration to say, wow, I've made a purchase. Someone has loaned me 250,000, $500,000, or what, $150,000, or $1 million to buy a home that is an appreciating asset that at some point I'm going to own and pass it on to the next generation. Now we're talking about legacy, generational wealth. So this is a pretty big deal. And also stability, because what it says is I've put down some roots. Okay. Now this is a place, I'm not a nomad anymore. I'm in a certain place. I'm going to be here for the next often 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years. That's why it's important to consider getting your own place, having your own home, and building some degree of equity for not just us, but also for the next generation. Now, I want to close with this, and I'm gonna read this. We all read this together, if you don't mind. Are the retired people you know living life on their own terms? Did they have to work longer than they wanted to and put off retirement until it was too late to really enjoy that time? Do they wish they had started earlier with a financial game plan for their golden years? Don't make that mistake. Get started now. Get started now and take control of your future. I want you to please, if you would, take a picture of that CR code. There's a book in that system called How Money Works. I'm going to leave it up for a minute. Just take a picture of it with your phone there and scan it rather, and it'll take you right to that site. There's a book on that site, as I mentioned, called How Money Works. We'd like you to download that book and read it. The whole book is about 40 pages. There's a video on that site as well. And it's a lot of other good information on that, the real howmoneyworks.com. Once you've done that, we want to encourage you to get with whoever brought you out tonight, invited you out tonight, and do a one-on-one meeting and look at the other things that can be done, like a financial needs analysis, which looks at all the areas of the finances and will show that family a strategy of how to budget, how to get out of debt, how to determine their FIN, the FIN, the financial independence number, and to put all those calculations on paper and not just give information, but also implementation of the information. It makes all the difference in the world. Listen, we want to thank you so much for your time. I want to encourage you to follow up with whoever brought you out tonight again and sit down and take it to the very next level. Y'all have a great rest of the night. And thank you again for plugging into our meeting. Take care.